Hey guys, how's it going? Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thank you so much for checking out another one of our super cool studio gear reviews. Got another plugin review for you today. This is TkDelay from the awesome guys at Tritik. Now, we've taken a look at a few of Tritik's other premium plugins, and the guys over there got in touch with us after seeing some of our other plugin reviews and said, hey, we would love it if you'd take a look at some of our offerings. And I said, yes, absolutely, I would love to. And so far, what we've checked out from them, I've really enjoyed it. They definitely have a unique approach, and I think they're doing some very cool stuff. So first of all, big thank you to the guys at Tritik. I really appreciate you guys sending me a license for pretty much all the premium plugins, and like I said today, TkDelay is what we're taking a look at, which is their kind of all-in-one, all-encompassing delay plugin, and it's very cool. It's a really great general purpose delay plugin. Has a few cool kind of tricks up its sleeve that I've enjoyed getting to know a little bit, but yeah, overall it's just a really great comprehensive delay plugin. So I'm going to show you guys around a couple of the basic features, some of those unique tricks that it can do. We'll listen to some sounds. I've got it pulled up here on just some drum stems from a session I recorded in my studio last year. And yeah, we'll just kind of get to know it a little bit. I'll let you guys know what I think of it, which, spoiler alert, I think it's a really great little delay plugin. So taking a look at the plugin, as soon as you open it up, I have it in the dark theme. It does actually come with two different interface skins, a dark and a light, which I always appreciate. I love dark grays and oranges, so looks very nice, very easy to understand, very well laid out. So all of that is awesome. But just kind of moving through all of the basic controls here, we of course have input gain, which can be done separately with your left and right channels. So if you want to feed one side harder than the other, you have that option, or of course you can link them, which is very nice. Then we actually have our delay time option here, and of course we can do free based in milliseconds or synced to our session tempo with all of our normal subdivisions of the rhythm, and these can be done free or linked as well. So that's the first kind of nice feature, is if you want to have maybe a dotted eighth in your right and a quarter note in your left, you definitely have that option, which I really like. That can give you some really nice stereo effects with your delays, which can bring a lot of depth to your mix. I particularly like doing that with vocals. You know, if I'm kind of doing that subtle delay depth trick on a vocal, sometimes it could be cool to have two different subdivisions going in each ear. It just enhances the width that much more. Now moving on, here's the first kind of cool trick that TkDelay can do. We can actually modulate our delays. Now I know there's a few delay plugins out there that offer this. You can definitely do that as here. Very simple. We just have a depth and a rate knob. This is going to control modulation of the pitch, those decay tails. So lets you do everything from a really subtle like tape echo effect, where you might have a little bit of wow and flutter in a tape delay. You can emulate that all the way out to some really crazy sounds. We'll play around with that in just a minute here. We have feedback control, very common. Definitely something we would expect in a delay. A link feature for that as well, in case you want to have different feedback rates in each side of your stereo image. We then have a phase reverse, which I think is actually kind of cool, and that's especially helpful if you're doing something where maybe you set one side to a quarter note, and then when we click free time and we want to just nudge this very slightly so that our delays kind of drift apart, we can then, if we're having any phasing issues, we can correct them. Or if you're not too worried about your mix being collapsed into mono, you can actually invert the phase on one side of your delay to make it feel really wide. Not something I would recommend doing 100% of the time, simply because, you know, anytime you have two things on each side that are out of phase, when you collapse your mix to mono, it's going to disappear. But if that's something you want to do, it is there. We then have dry wet and output gain, both great features. Now getting down here into the second section, we have left-right cross, which this basically controls the interaction of the two sides. So direct is going to give you just each side left and right as you're controlling them up here are going, that's exactly how they're going to work. The left is going to be the left, the right is going to be the right. Now, as you bring this up towards ping pong, you're going to increase the amount of kind of interference that the two sides have with each other. So if you have it all the way on ping pong, you're actually going to have both delays that start alternating sides. Okay, so the easiest way to think about this is if we mute one side of the input and I just play, I've just got a basic quarter note delay set up here with really nothing too crazy. So you can hear how it's ping-ponging back and forth now, as opposed to when we put it on direct. Now you're only going to hear it in one side. Now if we bring in our right and we leave it on direct, this gives us our standard delay. And then if we have both sides, the input gains all the way up, and we do ping pong, it sounds normal, but what it's actually doing is it's swapping those sides every single time as the delays, the echoes carry out. So that's kind of a unique way to control the stereo action or kind of stereo interference of your delay. I think it's very, very cool, and you can kind of blend it to anywhere in the middle. So this, you could get into some really, really interesting things, you know, especially if you have, for instance, we set it all the way to ping pong, and then we set this, maybe if we unlink these, to an eighth dotted. So you can hear it really starts to do some interesting things where those rhythms are kind of swapping sides and doing some interesting things. So very, very cool feature if you ask me. The next thing is kind of another interesting trick that the TkDelay has up its sleeve. This is a frequency shift. So again, kind of leaving our delay bone standard. If we turn this up, we have 100 hertz in either direction, and this is actually going to raise the pitch progressively of your echoes. You can hear that pitch starts kind of going up. So that's really unique. I can't say that's something I've seen directly done that way in another delay plugin. That's very, very cool. So now next we have this reverse, which this is another kind of an interesting and unique thing to TkDelay. This is actually going to reverse to some degree the echoes themselves. So at 0, we have a totally normal delay. We crank it to 100. You can hear it's actually taken that audio and reversed it to give us our echo effect. And in the middle, you can hear it's kind of taking 50% forward and then reversing that 50% and pushing it backwards. Very, very unique feature. Next, we have overdrive, which is just going to give some extra grit, drive, and gain to our echoes. And when we start working with the overdrive and the feedback, that's where we can start to get that kind of space echo, self-oscillating type echo situation. This plugin doesn't do it quite as much as I like. I really like playing around with delays that way, where you feed them a tiny bit of sound and then you push the feedback and the drive on the delay into this crazy, swirling, wild world of delay. I love doing that. This plugin does not do that, unfortunately, even if we turn up feedback and drive all the way. It's still going to decay away, you know, and that's okay. You know, it definitely makes it much more practical after a fashion, because we don't necessarily always want to be able to do that with delays, but I always like to. I think it's really, really fun. Now, finally, down here, we do have a filter, and this is a really interesting filter. So depending on, we have our normal filter modes: low pass, band pass, high pass, and then high and low pass, which is kind of a broader band pass. So just for the sake of argument, we'll put it on high pass. This is going to apply a filter to your delay, which is not that uncommon, but we do have a resonant peak available for this filter, and then we can actually oscillate that filter. So that oscillation time, we can either sync or have it be free in terms of milliseconds. So right now I have it set up to sync every bar. So you can actually hear that filter is sweeping. And we can increase that rate. And we get this very interesting, almost siren-like effect of that super resonant filter being applied to our delay. Very, very unique and very unusual, especially with this resonant peak. We'll definitely see filters for delays sometimes. It can help to give us that kind of tape delay feeling where each time your delay happens, it's getting a little bit more and more band passed or pushed into the mids or pushed into the highs or something like that. That's a very, very useful thing. But to add this resonant peak and this LFO, which is more of a synthesis style approach, I think is really interesting, and it gives you some really, really, really unique options. So that's pretty much everything there is to talk about in terms of the controls of the plugin. Now, there's a few things that Tritik includes in all their plugins up here. Of course, we've got some basic presets, which I always appreciate. We do have an A and B function, which is really, really nice. So you can set up two different patches and then kind of A-B them back and forth. And then we do have undo and redo within the plugin, which is very, very cool. We've got preferences down here. We can freeze parameters and if we need to do that. And we do have, of course, it's MIDI learnable. So if you have a control surface or something like that, you can definitely assign some of these controls to a control surface. Overall, it's a very, very full-featured delay plugin. And the thing that I think is really interesting about it really gets into some of these more unique features, like how it treats the stereo image, the fact that it can do this frequency shifting and reversing stuff and this filter. You know, it's not overly crazy. I definitely don't feel overwhelmed by the number of options, which is nice. I think there's a few things that if you're going to kind of push it in this direction, you could include. For example, for both this mod and this LFO, you could include different shapes or different waveforms for those modulation oscillating type things. Just in terms of, you know, we could do a square wave down here or a sine wave or stepped kind of a situation. That could be a very cool addition to this. But on the flip side of that, you might kind of push it into being an overwhelming plugin to use where you suddenly have so many options that it gets a little bit daunting. I think that what the Tritik guys have done here is a great job of blending having a lot of really unique features and unique options into a plugin that we all know how to use and undoubtedly use all the time. I mean, I love delays. Delays are a huge part of how I mix, especially when it comes to stuff like vocals, guitars, and, you know, anything where I need to give it some width in the stereo image or make it feel like it's taking up more space. A lot of times you reach for a reverb. Well, a delay is also a really great option for those kinds of applications. So, you know, you can, of course, get this to do pretty much anything you want in terms of what a normal delay would do. If we turn off the filter here and kind of give it some normal settings, it's a totally plain Jane delay. We can give it a little bit of filtering and we don't have to use the LFO or that resonance. We can maybe do a little bit of band pass. And we just have a very, very typical sounding delay. Now we can bring in a little bit of modulation, make it a little bit different on each side, right? Keep things real low and real gentle, and we're going to get kind of a tape echo sound. Very, very nice. But then we can really go kind of wild here. And let's say frequency shift down on left and up on right. And then let's say we don't link our synchronization. We set one side at a dot at an eighth, get it to ping pong, set a reverse to 50%, overdrive it a little bit, and then give this band pass, a little bit of LFO. That's a really cool and really unique sound right there. That's really, really neat. You know, that's not the kind of a sound that you're going to get from a normal delay plugin. You know, you can get some really, really wild sounds out of it. And this is something that I've seen in a number of the other Tritik plugins that we've looked at, where you can really do some wacky stuff with them. They include They have a tendency to include a lot of the same kind of stuff in a lot of their plugins, LFOs and modulation tools in kind of unusual places. You know, there's a bit crushing plugin of theirs that we took a look at a couple of weeks ago, and same kind of a thing. It was like normal bit crusher, but then it had all these ways to use your bit crusher as a much more dynamic and rhythmic thing, which I thought was really cool and really, really original. You see the same kind of thinking here, you know, adding in some more of these interesting oscillation-based or kind of synth-based, really, tools into a delay. I think it's really, really cool. If it sounds like a plugin that's going to fit in your workflow, if some of these more unique features like the frequency shift, the modulation, the filtering, all this stuff, if it sounds something that's interesting to you and will fit well into your workflow, it's great. It sounds really, really good. It sounds very clean, as I said, and it's got some very, very unusual and unique features that I think could be used very, very creatively. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. I think it's very, very cool, and if it seems interesting, definitely give it a listen. We will put a link to Tritik's website down in the description below so that you can check the current price and go pick it up if you would like. And again, before I close out, just thank you so much to the guys at Tritik for sending it over, letting me try it out. Very, very cool plugin, very interesting, very creative, definitely fits into their sphere of what they're trying to do with plugins. I overall just think it's very, very cool. But what do you guys think? What are some of your favorite delay plugins that you like to use? Whatever they may be, I definitely love to hear about them. Leave them in the comments down below. If you have not yet subscribed to the Consordini channel, please do that as well. Really, really helps us out. If you want to give this video a like or a share, that would be awesome as well. But regardless, my name is Alex Scott with Consordini.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.